Wrongly presenting in meetings is killing your opportunity to become an executive by at least a few years. I've been there. I've lost executive access for years because of how I showed up in those rooms. In my career, I have run over hundreds of executive meetings. Every mistake I'm about to show you, I've made it. Some of them have even cost me years. In this video, I'm going to tell you 4 mistakes you are making in your meetings which are silently killing your opportunity to become an executive. Before we dive into these mistakes, the first thing to understand is what is an executive avatar. Because most presentation mistakes is not in the presentation but a misunderstanding of the executive itself. In your early career, where you get opportunity to meet the executive next to almost nothing, you're bound to not able to grasp an executive mindset. An executive becomes an executive the day he picks up on a business metric which is key to the growth of the organization. It could be revenue, cost, marketing, sales, like anything that drives business results. Executives on an average run 8 to 10 meetings in a day and have multiple different reportees presenting back to them. By the nature of an executive owning business numbers, a fundamental shift happens in what the executive sees as what is relevant. And if your presentation in any way seems like irrelevant to them, you get quickly judged as not ready yet. For you to get executive ready, it is assumed that it takes on an average between few quarters to a few years. And executives just can't spend time waiting for you to actually deliver. So the first thing to be very clear about an executive is their time and goal perception. You need to be talking around their goals and nowhere else. When drafting your presentation, for each line, each word, ask whether it fits into the executive expectation. Knowing the executive avatar is just the start, but the first presentation mistake causes the most confusion. Let me draw you a scenario here. You built a presentation which had the exact growth strategy which would have helped the executive to win. It had the numbers, details, case study, external research, customer calls, anecdotes, everything you could have thought of. And then, after you present everything, there's a complete blank stare as to what just happened and what to do next. The first mistake of making presentations is missing out on what do you really want out of the executive or your key ask. Every executive is a decision making machine. They are ready to unlock every door if that door leads to achieving their goals. And your key ask could be anything. You might require additional budget to drive the first phase of an experiment. You may require additional staff members in your team to achieve results. It could be that you want to commission a new study for a competitor. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you are super clear on what you want from that meeting. Not being explicit about the ask means that you don't know the direction to the meeting. And the ask cannot be an afterthought. You need to be super explicit and work backwards when you start planning your presentation. Even if you're clear on your key ask, the second mistake creates the biggest drag show in your presentation. If an executive is doing 8 to 10 meetings in a day or 40 to 45 meetings in a week, if you are meeting the executive after just 1 week, there has been 50 new presentations the executive had already looked at. Working at the executive level means almost having no contextual memory. Now, you might have showcased your work a week before, but the reality is the executive has completely forgotten what you have worked on. What you need to optimize in your presentation is the fastest way to come on the same page with the executive. This means using aligned symbols, nomenclature, presentations, and formats. Uh, this is a fluency in which the exact same symbol which you had established with the executive before, if that gets used, there's some kind of felt memory of everything we have showcased before. Your goal is to get to that mutually aligned concept or memory in the shortest possible time. If you come back with a new concept every time you meet, you are delaying the graspability of the presentation. Whenever you are presenting, you would be able to observe the hard thinking the executive is doing. The hard thinking is nothing but delay in comprehension, which could cause your presentation to completely derail. The key idea here is to have a grasp on where is the executive from his understanding of reality when you met him last time and how could you help him progress in the shortest possible time. You got the ask right, you have maxed out on the graspability, but still the next mistake can completely derail the presentation and won't get you the real buy-in. Now, you're explaining the presentation, and in between, there is a new commission study which you did, which took you like more than 2 weeks of dedicated efforts. Uh, Real hard work, right? You want the executive to understand the study and its results. You go ahead and explain the study. The study clearly proves that the results are not actually valid for the business. You explain with full gusto. You like see multiple double clicks by the executive, and the double clicks gets you some confidence that the presentation is going well. Now, this is a classic trap which I called as the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole has no additional value to your overall presentation, but since you had worked on it, you felt necessary to present it. Parallelly, the executive is a problem solving machine. If you present the study, he would naturally start asking you genuine questions. And this you would misunderstand as a positive signal that the presentation is going actually really well. Now, you can easily avoid rabbit holes if you are highly strict on your path towards the key ask. You can prepare the entire presentation to the T, but the next mistake costs you massively without you even knowing it. Even if your presentation is ready, you still need to prepare for the flow of the presentation. You can apply different ways to get ready for this. You could do internal role play to play out the exact presentation, how it will go. You could try to anticipate all the questions that can come in the meeting. You can showcase the work to other colleagues who you would have seen success with the executive. These all methods are right, but they miss out on one dynamic of the executive presentation. If you have prepared a line of thought and suddenly you are asked a different question, like a minor detour, how do you bring back the conversation to the line of thinking which you wanted him to go through? Now, this requires extreme dynamism in active listening and accordingly reacting to the scenario. After making multiple mistakes, I found this one practice which solves this problem in the easiest possible manner. You start by predicting how much time you will take to give the presentation. It's a thought exercise. So let's say you apply some logic and come down to 15 minutes. Now, this means that given 15 minutes, you would be able to explain your presentation end to end. Now, instead of having just one talk track of 15 minutes, you keep three talk tracks for the presentation. The first one, obviously, where the presentation runs for 15 minutes with no interruption, and the next talk track where we are given, like, let's say 5 minutes for the presentation. You cut short it. And then what would be our talk track then? The goal here is to be ready for a scenario where we know dynamically what parts of the presentation can be concised further or removed dynamically based on the presentation scenario. And similarly, you do that for a 30-minute scenario as well. Now, we did 5 minutes, we did 30 minutes and 15 minutes. The conscious effort of concising it and then broadening it, which is the three talk tracks, makes your overall presentation dynamic and ready for pivot in runtime. Now, these talk tracks keep your mind ready for cognitive fluency in whichever part of the presentation and is ready for any kind of detour. So, just to quickly summarize what we have learned, always work backwards from a key ask. Help imagine the scenario in the fastest way possible. Avoid rabbit holes at all costs. Have multiple talk tracks ready to bring dynamism to your presentation. Now, if you want to work with me to take your executive presentation to the next level, then you can book some time on my calendar. I put the calendar link below. Now, there is a specific thinking mistake you could make which might still be killing your executive presentations. So watch this next video where I will show you exactly how you might be getting your thinking wrong and the simple structure change you can do to win on it.